Oh, it's no contest. Like, it's a no-brainer at all.
Here we are.
Good afternoon. My name is Elise Hatton. Welcome to today's HubLive. Welcome to the virtual Smart Hub. And also very welcome to a very special guest today, Mark Cook. Today we're going to talk about digitizing business processes. And Mark has a really interesting story. He works for an interesting organization, which I'll leave it to you to tell us all about who you work for and how you were able to help or how you managed. But really, Mark's story illustrates and highlights the fact that we can really use digital to make our lives in business easier and faster and more effective and more efficient. So hello, Mark, how are you?
I'm well, thank you very much. Very happy to be here, and yeah, very excited to talk about what I've been doing for the last few months.
So let's start by asking you, where are you based, Mark? Because you're not even in Queensland.
No, that's right. So I'm from Queensland originally, but I've been working for the West Australian Police for 9 years now, and currently the rank of first class constable and just about to approach senior constable. So, I've been working there I'm still a baby to some, but enough to be there for a while. And yeah, I've really enjoyed my career so far with WA Police. It's been fantastic.
So how did you go from being a constable, and I don't know much about the police force, but I'm assuming that's the person who is out on the street doing the hands-on, policing work. How did you go from being that person to getting involved in digital?
Yeah, so you're dead right. So basically when you call 000, I'm the guy that comes to your front door. And I've done that my whole career. It's called a general duty police officer. And yeah, we're literally responding to calls and going to tasks, and usually run off our feet for 10 hours a day, if not more. Sorry, I can't come home tonight. I'm going to be here for another 10 hours. And that's all I know. And I've loved, and I've never moved away from that. I've never specialized just because I enjoy doing what I do so much. But about, I want to say maybe just shy of 2 years ago, the police force, and it was in the media at the time, they did this massive reform where they gave us every single officer got an iPhone 11, and it's yours. And it was just like, you're doing what? And we couldn't believe it, because we used to have to go back to the station, do all our paperwork. We'd be in there for an hour, maybe two, go back on, you'd lose officers. But now that they've given us these iPhones, we can, access all our data and everything mobile. So we can be on the street, we can be talking to someone and load up their data. Then we can do our reports, we can search people, know where other officers are. It totally changed the way we police. And I remember at the time, one of the commissioned officers that was doing the rollout, he said to us, you're going to remember today as the first day that the digital change started to occur. And so from these phones, and we've had a few applications, and things are pretty good with it. But what I saw was a lot of opportunity with the phone to do even more than what we were doing. And with any workspace, you've got certain roles and things you could do that just, I'm sure I'm not alone here, just totally frustrating tasks that you're wondering, why am I doing this? Or, this is the wrong way to be doing this. And the managers might not even know it's a problem, but you on the front foot sort of going, this is awful. Why are we doing it like this? So I saw a lot of opportunities in our current business processes to be better, basically. But you're right, I wasn't in a position to change anything, because I'm not a digital police officer. I'm not a programmer. I'm just a frontline police officer, right? So how did I sort of make that move? So what I did is just sort of took the onus on myself, and with the police giving me the platform of the Microsoft Suite and our iPhone 11s, I use the Microsoft Power Platform, which is a low-code, marketed anyway, it's a low-code, no-code platform to make an application. So almost in my spare time, I hooked on. I knew nothing about it. I used YouTube and Google as references to get going. And I've got a web design development background as well in the past, before I was a police officer. So I knew a little bit about user interface and things. And I got to work on an application that we could use out on the road that would totally change the way we do this process, that was half in Microsoft Word and with half in this other way, and not everyone was doing it the same. And it was just disgusting. And so I did it up, I made it up, it totally worked. But having that implemented into the business was another challenge. So I got it technically working, and I posted it on our Microsoft Teams feedback channel to the digital policing team, because the police actually have a whole division set up for police
Okay,
officers to
Holland,
be.
you're going too fast. I
Yeah.
need to ask
Yeah, yeah,
questions.
yeah.
You're
Yeah.
jumping ahead. Okay, so firstly, you have a very limited technical background. Is that right?
So I'm a nerd by hobby, but I would know, I know what Visual Studio is, and I know what C++ is, and that's about the end of my limitation with programming. So yeah, I didn't really have a good grasp on, I know what a database is, I know what SQL, and but I've never really used it. And I've made web pages and things, and I went to uni many moons ago to do a multimedia studies background, but I'd never done anything of this sort of scope. So,
and you wouldn't call yourself a programmer or a developer, or you
definitely
wouldn't
not.
no, you would call yourself a police officer.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
right.
and so the second thing that I want to ask, and I don't know, like I'm not sure where the line is. So if I ask a question that you can't answer, please just say, "Oh, that's confidential information. I
Yeah,
can't
sure.
answer that." It's or secret, top secret.
Yeah.
Feel like I watch movies.
No, you just ask the questions, and I'll let you know if I can't answer it. That's fine.
Okay, no worries. So my question is, what is it that you were doing day to day that was frustrating you? Like, what is the part of the work that you thought, this is rubbish, I don't like doing it this way? And I'm sure that I'm not the only one.
Yeah. I'll try and simplify it the best I can.
Okay.
When an offender is set before the court, they can be given bail conditions. And what that basically, and then a bail condition could be the offender has to be at home between the hours of 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. They've got to stay at home. And so that's a bail condition. If they don't abide by those conditions, they have to go back before the court. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. And so what we would do as an agency is then check on those people, physically go to their homes and knock on their door, wake them up in the middle of the night, and make sure they were home. And then we would tick them off a list, basically. And we would, and this is the problem, is that we had no uniform. Well, we did have a uniform approach to it, but everyone did their own little thing with it. And quite often we would print out a Microsoft Word document, and you would tick them along in your own individual part, and the other police officers couldn't see what you were doing. Sometimes you would knock on people's door and you didn't know a police officer had just been there 10 minutes ago. And then there was another whole process on top of that to record what you were doing. That was sort of a duplication of process. And it's a classic example of just doing things because the last guy did it and that's how we do it. And I don't know why. And there's no one asked the question. It's just, that's how we do it. So yeah, it was bugging me that it could have been better. And we had these phones in our pockets that, we can use for so many more things. And this is just one example of one of the opportunities that we're presented with. So I just thought there's got to be a better way. Yeah.
That's amazing. I'm really interested in the fact that you would do it in that way. And I think every business, including the Smart Hub, including, so many other businesses that I work with and that I see, you can see little things that you could improve on. You could see little processes or little workflows or little tasks. Not that that's a little task. I think that's a really big task to see that someone actually complies with their parole conditions. That's a big deal. But, you can see things that have to happen every day that you could do a lot better, but they're just done in a certain way. And because they're done in a certain way, for many people, they're just like, that's the way it's done here. And we don't want to change anything. That's right, what I was told. And that's what I'm going to do. And it doesn't matter if I'm going to do the same thing for the next 10 years. That's the way it is, right? And that's kind of what the vibe is that I'm getting. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. And it's not a fault of even management. Management might just not be aware that it's even a problem. They're aware it's being done and the guys are off doing it and it's working. So no problems, right? And we often would get in our car with two officers and we chat together like, oh, this sucks, like, why do we do it like this? But we never go back to our police station and tell our supervisor that we're hating it. We just grumble between each other and nothing ever gets done. So sort of changing.
The work's getting done, so they don't mind. They just like,
exactly. It looks like it's working. That's right. Yeah, so no one even knows it's a problem.
I need to interrupt you again because I need to welcome a few people. Hey, Jolene and Natalie Dippin, thank you so much for joining us. I'm here with the amazing Mark Cook, and we're talking about digitizing processes and things that happen in our day-to-day that we do not enjoy doing. So I know that that's true for everyone. I have a few that I'm wondering how I can improve on as well. And then, okay, so you were on the go, finding these processes, doing things that you didn't enjoy, grumbling and complaining about that with your colleagues, and then you would get to a management meeting and it would just be all good. Yep, no, everything's working and everything's getting done. And you had this powerful iPhone 11 in your pocket. Tell us the rest of the story.
Okay, so yeah, so off I went and I thought, what can we do to improve this? And like I talked about duplication of process, and that was really what I wanted to focus on. And enhance like how quickly we can do this without the burden of all the administrative tasks and going back to the station to tell people we'd done it. So I made a totally custom app using the Microsoft Power Platform. If no one's familiar with it, I suggest you look it up. It's actually quite good for what it is. It does have limitations. It's quite nice. And I just started making this application, designing it in my head, and showed it to a few people in my office. And I said, what do you think about this? And they're like, that is amazing. We got to do this more. So and they've worked on their feedback a little bit and worked on it a little bit more until I was ready to sort of show it. The police force, like I was just about to say, have a digital policing division. And these are the guys responsible for rolling out the iPhones, application development, these sort of things. So I posted it to their Microsoft team and I said, what do you guys think of this? Can we progress this any further? And an inspector saw it and said, can you come into our office for a week and show us what this is all about? And I was quite excited and turned up, and it was actually quite an experience. You know, when you feel like you're the dumbest guy in the room and you feel like this is the place to be because, you know, I'm totally in my element here and I can learn and grow here. So I did feel overwhelmed at first, and there was a lot of rank that I wasn't used to. I'm quite used to being one of the more senior officers within the workplace I was in. So it was a pretty daunting experience, but showed them what I did. And because I knew the application so well, and because I knew the process so well, I was able to confidently speak about what it was and what I wanted to do. And they had some great feedback as well. And I remember at the time he said, so how quickly can we make this a product? And I said, oh, and I didn't really know the answer. I said, maybe 2 months. And he said, you'll have it ready in a week. And that was their way of pushing me and trying to get the most out of me. So it was good. Definitely felt the boiler cooker, but so they gave me an opportunity to show this to more people. We got our offender management units involved. Different people saw it, different sort of experts within the field, and the feedback was just instantly positive. And I should sort of pause there and just speak about something I do want to speak about, because this annoys me no end, is that right from the start, I made this very a linear design, so you couldn't sort of get lost in the application. It was a start and a finish point. And I made it very, I guess, pretty and like nice to look at. So it had, you know, a very nice user interface. And almost every business application thing I see, and I've worked in throughout my career, they're so lumbersome and they look so boring, and like no one, it's like, I made this thing so like you want to, like it's got, you know, it looks really nice, right? Sort of like a nice modern day application on the iPhone. So, and I think it made a lot of difference because people straight away, they saw this thing and straight away with their eyes, before they even looked at what it did, just went, this looks great. This, you know, we should make all our stuff look like this.
Now, give us the tip. Like, how do you make something look great? What colors did you choose? Just give us a few design tips, just like the top 3.
Honestly, I would go to Google and I would look at a website called Dribble with 3 Bs, and it has a whole lot of user interface examples and templates and things, and just look through all the different designs and look at what you like and what would work in your application, and just go from there. So something else as well is.
Can you share, is it possible for you to share your screen and show us which one you chose?
Yeah. I told you I wasn't technical.
Now.
Yeah, I am. I'm on the mobile platform and I might...
oh, you might not be able to. That's okay.
Yeah. Oh, it's quite simple. Just Google Dribble. It's quite a popular website. It'll be the first result that comes up.
Nice.
But yeah, I also had the application from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. automatically do a dark mode. So because it was... And first I made it all in like, you know, white and everything. And then I thought, this isn't going to work. It's nighttime when we're checking these guys. It's got to be nice on the eyes. So you've got to think about when your user's going to actually use the application as well. So for us, it was nighttime, and the dark mode was really important, but that might not be important for everyone. So I made this thing
I
really.
know that Jacinta's posted Dribble in the actual comments in the feed on
Perfect.
Facebook. So if you want to access that, you can just check on the comments. But I also want to ask you, did you talk to any of your colleagues while you were doing this, or did you have all the information you needed to know what would make it easy and what would appeal to them?
Yeah, I had a really good idea to start with, and I got up to a certain point. But then what made it from sort of average to good was talking to my colleagues and going, what do you think about this? And they're like, oh yeah, but a note section would be really good where I can do this, you know, free text here. I'm like, oh, that is a good idea. And I probably went to maybe 12 people in total before I showed it to digital policing and said, what do you think of this? And yeah, and then really leveraged all that feedback. And it was good when, and was like self-assuring when someone said, this is great. But what I liked even better was when someone ripped it to shreds and said, this is, because then I could use that negative feedback to make it even better. And, you know, sort of looking at it and going, this guy's only saying it's rubbish because he can think of it of a better way. So I'm not getting, you know, upset or not putting it me down, but I wasn't able to really leverage anyone that just said, that's really good, I like it. It did nothing for me. But when someone said, could it do this instead? That's when I really enjoyed the feedback. So yeah.
That's cool.
That was,
okay, so then you
handy.
show up with this beautiful application, and then what happened next?
Yeah, so I'm presenting it to people, and there were some roadblocks. You know, some people started questioning things that I hadn't really thought about in my process: auditability, security, you know, database limitations, and all these sort of technical aspects that I just want it to work. I don't really, you know anything about that sort of stuff. So we battled through that and we overcame those challenges. And like I said, working on the negative feedback, okay, they've got some concerns. Those concerns are in place for a reason. We can't just ignore it. And worked on it. We got up to a level where the superintendent, who was very supportive from the very start, I can't thank him enough for the time he, you know, because I was taken away from my duties, so that the district was I was on loan for a little bit, so it was quite, and you know, we need more police officers, not less. So for them to allow me to go out, and the superintendent said to me, he said, sometimes we're trying to chop down a forest here with an axe, and sometimes you've got to remove the axe from the forest to sharpen it before you put it back.
Yeah.
And take the time to do that. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah. So I took that on board and I went, I like that. So they borrowed me, and he was very supportive, and they allowed me to call it a proof of concept, and we rolled it out to an entire district of 200 officers. So 4 different police stations and 200 officers use this thing for, or have been using it now for about 6 weeks. And again, the feedback was excellent. So we opened up the feedback channels to it. We said, we want to make this even better. Tell us how it went. We had a few little hiccups, but nothing really broke, to my surprise. I thought it was going to fall over in a heap. And yeah, it was a really good experience. We sent out a survey of which quite a large percentage of people came back and said overwhelmingly it was fantastic. And now it's gone, and its current status is that we've currently done a briefing note up to the commissioner level to say, can we roll this out agency wide? So we're now at that stage. So it's really progressed, and it's been quite quickly. I think I first started, I had the idea just before Christmas. So, and now it's already being rolled out to potentially an agency wide application. So where, you know, over 7,000 officers will be using this thing. So yeah, it's been pretty
incredible. Well done. That's brilliant.
Yeah, it's good.
That is really good. Okay, so how many hours did you spend creating the application with no code? And maybe if you could tell us, what is your understanding of no code? Like when we say no code, how much or how little actual coding do you need? Knowledge do you actually need?
Yeah. So this is where Microsoft's marketing and real world sort of start to get a bit hazy, right? Because how can you make an application with no code? And I'll talk directly about Power Apps now, and my thoughts on it. It is really a sensational. What you see is what you get. You can, you know, bring in fields, and it's quite easy to navigate. I almost liken it to Microsoft Excel. And if you're a total beginner at Excel, compared to someone who is quite advanced in Excel and can do a whole lot of formulated and macros, and there's a whole lot of things in Excel that are quite complex, but the average user can get through Excel. I'd say Power Apps is the same thing, where the average user can make something pretty basic, but then to get it to a point where it's usable to to a professional grade application can be challenging. But that being said, there are courses available, and YouTube is just such a fantastic resource for anything, not limited to Power Apps. You can YouTube anything, and how do I do this? And there's someone who's made a video on it.
So did you do a lot of YouTubing? Is that how you solve many of them?
Oh, yeah. So I remember I had about an hour train ride every day for digital policing in the city. And almost every time on the train, I'd put my earphones in and just be watching YouTube on how-tos and just get it. Because I felt like the stupidest person in the room when I got into that building. Like, there were so many people that I could learn from. And yeah, once you start sort of a network of people as well with ability to fix things, it was, because sometimes I hit syntax problems. I was like, I have no idea how to fix this. Like, it's well beyond my limitation. I don't know what I'm doing now. I'm in over my head, but you crux it out, and you figure it out, and you learn, and just as you go along. So I think no code's a bit brave from Microsoft, but it's not. You don't need any C++ knowledge, or you quickly gather it. It's no problem. It does have limitations within the Power Apps itself, which is, there's a few workarounds and things, but to get you to a point, even to just a proof of concept or a mock-up point, to show people and visualize your thought, because you might have the idea, but you don't know how to get it across to someone. Even if you don't want to have the final product in Power Apps, making a mock-up in there is, I think, a good idea as well.
That's really interesting. I just want to quickly comment on what you said about YouTube. It's probably something that most surprised me when I started really working in the tech, like in the hub, and really understanding, and working more closely with technical people, because I'm non-technical myself, is that in a way you assume that they know everything. And I remember saying to someone once, I have always felt like technology is a little bit like magic. Things just, happen behind the scenes. But the thing that I've realized is that they're very, very good at Googling and YouTubing, which basically, and following step-by-step instructions, not to take away any of their absolute brilliance and technical knowledge. But what I am saying is it's probably more accessible to most people than we realize. And while we think that making anything technology-wise is difficult and beyond us if we're non-technical, that's not quite the truth. You can learn and teach yourself a lot by just Googling and YouTubing. And that's basically what you did.
It is a totally free, unlimited resource that you're allowed to. There's no, you've watched your 10 videos this month, come back next month. It's an amazing library of information. Why would you not use it?
Isn't it amazing?
And even professionals, there's people in that office still getting stuck on, no one's an expert, no one is perfect, and you're going to encounter problems that you don't know about, and that's how you learn. So every single problem's an opportunity. I know I've said it already, but it's really a good mindset to have, to not be down in the dumps about it. It's worked for me anyway.
Yeah, I love it. Hey, Kim. Hey, Alison. Thank you so much for joining us. Yes, so Mark, continue on, right? So now you're watching YouTube, you're fixing some of the problems.
Yeah, so I started interacting with some of the other developers as well, because people wanted integration with different applications. So, sort of more complex things that I hadn't thought of. They want a map view. They want to, use mapping, and they want to have it integrated with our body-worn cameras and all sorts of little technical things. So I was battling through those problems and going through with our developers who, it's a perfect example of that. They didn't know everything either. Sometimes we encounter problems and we're like, oh, we're going to have to Google this one.
Yeah.
But fortunately or unfortunately, and I guess it's a good thing overall, but it was a bit hard to pellet for me at the start, was that my time at digital policing had to come at an end at some point. I was on loan. We desperately need police officers, and I did have to go back to the forest to keep cutting the trees at some point, right? So it gave us another good opportunity where I had to sort of hand over my little precious baby that only I'd been working on, and ensure that other people could work on it, and sort of do that transition phase. So that was challenging in itself. And
How did you make the transition back to being the creator of the application, to being the user of the application, and checking in on people on parole and using your application?
Definitely.
How did that transition happen? And also, how did you feel?
it was so weird, right? Using my own application out in the field, and then I actually reported back feedback back to the developers to say, hey, this should be better after I've used it for real. Like, this isn't working quite like I thought it would work in my little ivory castle. So no, look, I did go back, and even just like kitting back up and getting back out in the road, it was a bit of a weird feeling after a little bit of a break, and not really a break, but from being away from it. Different kind of stresses, that's for sure. And I remember saying to my girl, I said, oh, I feel a bit nervous all of a sudden, like I haven't policed in a while, this is a bit strange. And then a bit of peer-to-peer flack as well, but got a bit of,
can imagine.
oh, that's the curfew guy, but just took it on my shoulders. It was all in good fun, so there was nothing harmful about it. And but there was a lot of positive plays, like, oh, Cookie, I love that Herpio app. I love what you do with it. It's so good. So there was a bit of self-assurance there. While I didn't get any financial gain or anything from it, that was never the point, the purpose. Not everything should be about monetary gain. There was definitely a feel-good attribute to it, and I got to improve a business process for thousands of officers. So why would I not want to do that if I could? So I think we're a little bit too motivated by money at some times. So it was definitely not my my goal. But yeah, definitely. I definitely avoided your question about how many hours I put into that thing. I think, can that be one of the questions that I don't answer?
Yeah, top secret.
It was a
top
lot.
secret.
It was a lot.
Top secret. Hey, Mitch, thank you so much for joining us. I'm here with the amazing Mark Cook. He's talking to us about how he used Microsoft tools. What's it called?
It was Power Apps.
Power Apps, that's right. Microsoft Power Apps and no code to build an application to improve a business process. So Mark, my question is, what's your next project? Because I'm sure there's plenty of things that can be improved in your day-to-day job.
100%, yeah. There's a lot of opportunity there. And already people have come up to me and said, can we have an app that does this? Can we do this? I think that's all the work that went into this one. And it still needs to go. There's still a road ahead for that application as well. It's by no means finished. It's an evolving thing that we can continually make better. So, what is my next project? I don't want to commit myself to anything. There's one in particular that I'm really looking forward to sort of doing, but it's a big task, and whether or not I'll be given that opportunity or not, I'd like to go back to digital policing full time. I've made them very aware of that, but I'm in tenure, so I just have to enjoy what I'm doing for now, and then I can look at the future later when I'm out of my tenure period in my current police station.
So one thing that I really appreciated about your story up to this point was the fact that you didn't really ask for permission. You basically just went about building something that you knew could make your life better. And then you introduced it to your fellow police officers, and then that kind of spiraled from there. Do you now, having gone through that process, do you now feel like you're in a place where you need to ask for permission for your next project? Or are you the kind of guy who'll just go, yeah, I'm just going to start working on this little side project over here? But I'm also quite mindful that I'm sure your family would enjoy your being home and present, and not, with your head in YouTube all the time. So what does that look like? Hey, Kerry, thank you so much for joining us. Great to see you.
That's a good question about permission. I just didn't do it in that way. I just never felt like I had to. I wasn't hurting anyone, but if it didn't work out, then no harm done. I just pushed the delete button and I gave it a go. So if it was harmful, or if it was going to affect the business process, if I was going to start that, then I think definitely seek permission. But I was only harming my time resource by, doing it. So no, I wouldn't ask again. I would just do what I did, set up a bit of a mock-up or a version 1, and seek feedback from peers, and then seek feedback from the powers to be, and see what they think of it. If it's going to benefit their business, and why would the organisation not want to incorporate that? Yeah, exactly. And like I said, people on the ground, we quite often know the business process so well. You can have a manager or a business analyst come in who has to learn that process, because that's the traditional thought. You have a business analyst, a solutions architect, a bunch of programmers, user interface experts, all at easily 100 and whatever plus salaries, or $1,000 a day, whatever their contract is. And we've totally skipped that within the organization, with having someone who knew the business process already just do a very low code and go from there. So there was definitely a cost saving exercise to it as well. Yeah, that we didn't have to endure. So I think it's a fantastic new way of looking at making digitalizing your workspace, and that was something as well that we didn't want to do, was just putting our current business process, and I believe that the term is to put paper behind glass, and that's not just putting your paper form behind a website window, that you're just doing the exact same thing but on a mobile platform. That's not what it's about. It's about having the opportunity to say, how can we do this better? What can we remove? Why are we doing this? What benefit does that have? And how can we streamline this? Just make it a totally linear. The person clicks the one button, goes to the next bit, they click the next one button, and it's done. So really simplifying it, making the business process better. In this particular example, the reporting was just exponentially better. It was better for the end user, and hopefully we're doing a better job of it now, rather than relying on bits of paper. And so I think it was.
I really like that concept. So it's not just about digitizing something that gets done day to day. It's also an opportunity to look at the process and go, okay, let's redesign this from start to finish and only use the bits that are really necessary, or maybe even introduce new elements, new steps that could make it a whole lot better. And I like the idea of the reporting. And I think that's something that's often missed, that's you have reporting, but then also what you mentioned before, which is the feedback loop. So we're constantly, how can we improve? It's a self-improving system. So it's not a system that's then just done, like the paper system was just done. It then becomes a living document that's always worked on and always improved.
100%. Yeah. If it had only been my idea, then the application probably wouldn't have been a success, because we had that feedback channel going, and our offender management unit, who are experts in that area, they contributed so much. And just because I clicked the buttons doesn't mean that it was just all me. It was a whole team of people. It was people pushing me. It was the other programmers. There was the team of digital policing guys doing their feedback, the end users doing their feedback. And I guess it did help as well that it was me that designed it, and I knew that they were sort of talking to me. So my peers could directly sort of speak with me and say, hey, we've been using this thing. So rather, I think if you had a traditional way of some programmer they didn't know, and it was just some app that was forced upon them, maybe, and I'm just speculating here, but maybe the feedback wouldn't have been as strong and, and continuous. So it was overall just a really, really good way of change. It was just, it was quite different and foreign. And I knew what we were doing was breaking the mold a little bit from the norm. But it was just such a good experience. I can't rate it enough. Yeah.
That's absolutely excellent. Hey Andrea, thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions for Mark, please feel free to pop those in the comments. And that kind of, Mark, what you were talking about just then leads me into something that I've been thinking about all of this conversation. When you digitize a process, or even when you upgrade any process, or really when you introduce technology into any business, usually what that means is it's a change management process. Because you're asking your team, you're asking people within the business, within the organization to do things differently. And now we all know it's human nature not to love change or necessarily to embrace change. We're kind of a little bit resistant to it generally. And I know that that's a big generalization. There are people who thrive on change, but they're definitely the exception, not the rule. And so that what you just said is really interesting. So there was no change management process, because in a way you got buy-in really early on, and it was almost designed with the people who are going to have to make the change. They were the people designing the process in the first place. So it wasn't someone who sat somewhere else to bring the process to you. It came from within the people who are going to use it. Tell me more.
That's a really good way of looking at that. I was just thinking then that, if your management sort of forcing these changes upon you, and you're going, geez, this isn't what we wanted at all. This is just awful. It doesn't work for us. We don't like it. This change is awful. Now, don't get me wrong. With the survey we sent out, I think there was, of all the participants, I think 3 came back and said that their experience with the application was terrible. So you're never going to capture everyone. Now, they had the opportunity to provide feedback to us. Obviously, there's just a few people that just don't like change. There's nothing wrong with the way we did it. We've been doing it that way for 20 years.
They love the old way. They don't want change.
That's right. That's fine. And maybe we can work with those people to ask for their feedback or whatever. We'll get through that. But the majority of people really liked it. So because the application's been built by us and not forced upon us, maybe there's something in that says, that's a good way to bring about change. What change do you want, and and then we can implement that change. So, sort of from the roots up rather than falling upon us. It's an interesting little way to do it. And this certainly isn't limited to policing. I'm sure that this hasn't been lost in translations, that I'm not only talking about what we can do within the police force because we've been given iPhones, although I strongly recommend you give your employees iPhones. It increases morale a lot. But this could be any sort of business. In a warehouse, you could be picking parts and know there's a better way to do things, and nothing's ever going to be done about it because the parts get picked and management see that and it's working. So it's definitely not unique to my situation.
So I think today's conversation has highlighted so many great lessons. I think the first one is almost, if you're in management or you're the business owner, to actually sit down with your team and not just assume that everything is happening, easily in the background just because what you're seeing is a good result. It's a good for people in management and owners to actually ask their team, hey, is there anything about your day-to-day job that seems clunky, that isn't working very well, that you're complaining about with your colleagues, that we might be able to improve? Would you agree with that? Would you, if your managers had asked you that question, would you be able to answer it properly, or what do you think?
I'm just going to say I totally agree with you. Yeah, not sometimes your problems aren't visible to upper management, and maybe your direct supervision aren't even, maybe they're aware of it and that's not filtering through. So, your higher ups just have no idea, and no fault of their own. I'm not saying that they're oblivious to it because they're choosing to be oblivious. I'm just saying that it's lost in translation because the work is being completed because you're doing your job, and you're grumbling about it to your peers, but it's not getting filtered up. Yeah, it's one of my pet peeves is when people say that they absolutely hate their job and that there's it's just awful, but then they do nothing about it at the same time. So are you actively looking for a role that you like, or are you trying to change, or what can you do to improve your current process that you're not enjoying? Why do you hate your job, and what can we do to help that? I think it's okay to hate your job, but maybe you need to be taking steps to get out of that hatred. Because why do you want to spend your one lifetime just in absolute misery? I don't understand why you'd stay. Yeah.
I think there's so much is in that. There's hating your job, but then there's also, well, if you hate what you do, what is your responsibility to make that better? I always know my kind of mantra in my head is, the moment I start thinking someone should do something about that, then I think, oh, that someone's probably me. Like, that's why I'm having this thought. And I think in society, if we all had that mindset where if you start thinking, really, someone should fix this, that someone is probably you. That's why it's occurring to you. And if you think someone should make my life better, my job better, then that someone could potentially be you. And you could ask yourself, how could you make your own job better? And what could you do in your spare time, maybe even if you're not going to get paid for it, but you'll get so much reward from doing and making improvements and contributing in other ways, so many rewards. What could you do to make your own life in your own job better? And if there's nothing, then you're right, maybe you should be in a different job.
Yeah, and maybe that's not going to apply to everyone. Sometimes people are sort of stuck, or they sort of forced to be in a role that they want to be in. But as long as it's temporary, or you've got an out plan or something, I would hate to see someone for 50 years do something that they just despise for a third of their life. It would be sad.
Yeah, that would be very sad. Okay, and what other kind of messages or lessons do you think that you would share if you had to talk to business owners like you do today? Like, what would you say you've learned? What can we do? What can we implement? What can we take away?
Yeah, I think empowering your staff, right? So the things that Waypol did, and I'm sure it was a very conscious decision on their behalf, is in our example, they provided this platform for us to use. They gave us the tools, and it was almost like a free canvas, and they said, let's see what we can do with this thing. And I'm sure it was only a matter of time before an officer like me stepped up and started thinking, how can we improve this? So give the tools that your staff need, or at least, and even if it's not a phone, it's just having a chat to them and saying, hey, is there anything about your job you hate, and can we do anything about it? And really not to discipline or anyone or anything like that, but just to see what they can do to make their lives better. If someone's doing a poor job, maybe it's not on them, maybe it's on the business process. Maybe, or maybe they're terrible at their job.
Yeah, no, I think that's very good. That's very good. Yeah, always look to the system before you look to the person. Always.
100%. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
always assume the best in people, 100%, especially in your team. And I think we have a comment. I'm just going to read the comment from Facebook.
Yeah, go for it.
A saying from some of my mentors was the 7 most expensive words. We've always done it this way. Yeah, those are expensive words. We've always done it this way. Our group live by this: change and change for the better, not just for the sake, but for the best resource you have, being our people, our team, our community. So well done. So many opportunities. Thank you, Brad. Thank you so much for that comment. That's really great. I like that. The most expensive words, we've always done it that way. Yeah, I can see that
Yeah,
that would
definitely.
be 100% right.
And he said something else as well. It's quite, we didn't really touch on, is that change just for the sake of change, right? And that's probably where this like of change comes from, is that why are we changing? If it doesn't value add or improve anything, why is this? And the lack of understanding and knowledge of why the change has occurred. So yeah, definitely don't just change it for the sake of changing it. Just make sure it actually improves something, and you're doing it for a reason. And that reason has to be translated to communicated to the people doing it as well. If they don't understand why it's changing, then they're going to not like it.
Yeah, or how it's going to benefit. But I really like the fact that in your example, Mark, that change was driven from the grassroots up. Like, not the change wasn't imposed on you. You were the change, which makes such a huge difference. It's amazing. So I'm sure that you and your colleagues were excited about actually using the latest version of the application.
That's right. It was very strange. I've got to tell you that it was just bizarre to open up my own application and use it. It was a bit of a weird feeling.
I'm sure. So just before we wrap up today's Hub Live, do you have any other parting words of wisdom that you'd like to share with us?
No, I'm not a wise man. I don't know any wise words. No, but it definitely doesn't take a super genius to do it. Or I'm not any different to any of my colleagues or anything. The only thing I did was YouTube a few things, and so I'm definitely not an expert in the field. I just saw an opportunity of a problem. A problem became an opportunity. An opportunity became the application. So no, I think we'll leave it with that.
That's brilliant. Mr. Mark Cook, you have been a fantastic guest. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. We really appreciate it. And thank you everyone for joining us on today's Hub Live. We will be back with you after Easter in a couple of weeks. I want to wish you a very, very happy Easter, and we'll see you in a fortnight. Thank you, Mark. Thanks so much. And thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much.